Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Hello! We are back! Oh, Carlo, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Still riding the hype of the weekend, I guess. It was a really good time. So I guess not really feeling that tired actually. I was surprised. I thought I would be absolutely wiped out by today, but yeah, feeling quite good actually. Feeling good.
Good. Yeah, I have to say I had a good night's sleep last night. Busy this morning, and then had a bit of a nap this afternoon, which did help. But yeah, feeling surprisingly fresh, especially for someone who drank a lot on the Friday night and quite a bit on the Saturday night as well. So there you go.
Can confirm.
Yes, we'll get onto all of that later on, of course, when we talk about the event itself. Yes, Belisarius, balance patch when? Immediately in. When's the balance? No, we'll talk about it all later. Right, so, it was a good weekend, right, Carlo? It was a great weekend.
I mean, are we talking in general, the LGT? I mean, both were pretty great, to be honest. Like, I actually think like tons of stuff was going on over the weekend, which we'll get to. I think it was a big weekend for Song. Like, there were actually just like events all over the place. The LGT, obviously, a huge focus for us, which was brilliant. I was really, really pleased with the event. But other events around Spain and other places, all going through the site, which I had a good look at once I got back. There was just too much stuff to keep up with. Really, really good. That's what I want every weekend to be. I want there to be too much stuff to keep up with. But I don't think we can always have that.
Yeah, it's true. Um, uh, it did occur to me, we were talking about this just briefly, weren't we, before the show, Carlo, that the stats site, and of course, Tourney Ground, in our infinite wisdom on the intro, the waiting page, whatever, it still has the Grand Tournament thing over. Are you sad to see this finally come down?
No, I mean, like, everything I've been thinking about for quite a long time has been like aiming at that date. It's quite nice to be able to finally look past it. Suddenly now, I'm looking towards the next tournaments, which I will be entering, not running. Really got me thinking about playing the game more rather than, like organizing the game. And as I was just discussing with the Patreons, like I'm pretty hyped to just like play some games right now. I was just when all the organization got really tight, I fucked off on holiday for 3 weeks. So I haven't actually. I played some ELO games. They were a little bit rushed because we arrived late. We'll get around to that bit, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
like I haven't actually played very much in the past 2 months. I'm super hyped to play some games. Watching everybody else play, have a great time, have a great weekend, really got me hyped to just play the game. And so yeah, I'm almost glad that I personally can look past it now, think about what army I'm going to play, what lists I'm going to do, new units I'm going to paint, rather than like focusing on like, okay, I'm going to play this list in the LGT and I need to get these units painted, for example.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. So on that note of painting lists, right? Let's the story of the week, right? We'll start the story of the week. Uh, Thursday night going into Friday morning, it was 1:30, 2:00, right? And then we were chatting about organization, which was just absolutely ridiculous. This is like Friday morning at 2 a.m. We're up at 7 or 8 o'clock to set off, and um, I'm sat there at 2 o'clock, and Carlo's like, "What do you mean you haven't finished your last unit?" I kid you not, I was like packing up, like getting into bed and things like that. And I literally came downstairs and pulled out my last unit that was unpainted and started fucking base coating some of the units, and I got like 5 models in. I was like, I cannot do this. I am incapable of this. So yeah, I mean it was rushed. You're right. It was crazy, and that's my fault. Only my fault.
I mean, I only had a few models to paint to get my Baratheons ready, and between coming back from holiday and then going to the LGT, obviously it was in amongst having things to organize, sort out, and stuff like that. But I was basing models at 1 a.m. on Friday, needing to leave for the LGT at 7, 8 o'clock the next day, which I actually just think is, honestly, I think it's a classic part of a tabletop convention. Like, I actually think that, like, that is actually part of the rites of passage of a tabletop convention, and just like it's the kind of thing that a serial procrastinator like me needs to make them finish their army. So yeah, kind of
Yeah.
to be expected almost.
So, I guess that takes us. I have no idea what order we're going to do this in. I have not thought about this, except we're going to talk about the LGT. I've actually not thought about it all day, which is really weird because usually I think about it all the time. I guess we'll start off with the ELO tournament, and then we'll obviously go on to the Grand Tournament itself. But that wasn't the only thing we've got to talk about, right? There were some other events being run on the site. We'll come into it just so you know what to expect. But you also had, if I can find it, the Terrible Tournament. I believe that's the one. Not Terrible Tournament. The Spanish Playoffs, obviously. And here we go, the Warsaw Elite ELO with Blackjack and Hookers, which we'll come back to in a minute. So
also the Cerberus event, which I want to talk about because I'm not actually entirely sure how they ran it, considering the site isn't actually compatible with Cerberus. But I'm like, oh, if they wanted to, I know the Fabricated Forge guys have tried to run a few events through the site in the past. I'm really glad that they've managed to actually run one through. It's just surprising that the one that they've managed to get run through the site is the one format that it actually just cannot quite really achieve. It can't. It's not compatible with the 3-list format of Cerberus, but like I'm glad that they and their community are using it. I really am.
100%. So, part of what we'll go through, I guess, should we do it first or should we do it second? Should we do the photos first or the tournament first and then photos, or what? How do we want to do it? Your choice.
Maybe start with the tournament, move on to photos, then we'll come back to like talking about the Spanish event, maybe
Cool.
something like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we'll start off with the Friday ELO event that we ran. Going back to what Carlo said, we were actually we weren't late. We weren't late to the venue, and anyone who says that we were late to the venue, you're incorrect. We did in fact arrive at the venue 2 minutes before 2 o'clock, so we were there
2 minutes before the event started.
Yes. Anyone who says that is late, you're incorrect. We were there on time. Irrelevant of the fact that we aimed to get there about 12:30, 1 o'clock. That is irrelevant. It turns out Google just straight up lied to us in terms of how long it would take to get here. It said it was 3 hours and 54 minutes.
It was almost the starting of like the fuel crisis, roads of nightmare.
Yeah.
Fuck London.
Jesus.
A journey that supposedly was going to take us 4.5 hours actually ended up taking me 6.5 hours. So when we arrived at 2, so yes, we arrived at 2 minutes to 2, but I had been driving for 6.5 hours straight, except for a 10-minute stop. So,
got out and got you a coffee, right? And you went to the toilet.
We
that was
got out.
Literally it.
I hadn't eaten any breakfast, and I'd been driving for 6.5 hours. So I was in an absolute state come Friday night. I'm actually surprised that I didn't just tell everybody to fucking leave by the time. I'm surprised that we stayed till 11. I actually can't believe that I wasn't like, why the fuck are we still here, guys? Can I go, please? Can I go to bed? But you know what? Yeah, the whole rest of the weekend was easy by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Good. So that was the journey down. So we weren't late. We were on time. And then the event started. And of course, because we were a bit late, Chris did an absolute... I mean, we'll talk about Chris a lot during this episode. but Chris did an absolute sterling job. He did a lot of the registrations for us before we got there, so I was literally had my laptop and my phone in the back of the car, like tethering and making sure everything was running smoothly. So when we got there was a couple of last minute things we needed to do. But the ELO event ran. It turns out we started about 45 minutes later than we should have done. And I'll be honest, I don't think anyone gave a shit. I have to say, the guys down at the event for on the Friday were incredibly, incredibly amazing with that. They were just like, "It's fine if you're late. Don't worry. We're still going to play 3 games. We'll run the rounds a bit differently." We didn't really stick to a schedule. We just kind of went, "Fuck it. We'll play roughly these time limits. See what happened." And I don't think a single event on the Friday was like there was not a single game on the Friday that was problematic. Right? It was all just everyone played. No one ended on time, by the way. Every game just finished, and it was like, right, well, as soon as the last one's finished, we'll go straight into the next round. And if you needed to loo break and things, go for a loo break, whatever you. And kept it nice and simple, really casual, smooth, and it really worked well. My favourite point of the ELO, which we'll get onto in the rounds in a minute, is the first round, because for some stupid freaking reason, whenever I seem to run an ELO event, it doesn't work. Everyone else's works fine. Everyone else's works fine. Mine.
I have incidentally found out what is wrong, and it may end up being fixed, but hopefully soon.
So it's not my fault. Are you relinquishing?
Yeah, it was actually I have sourced the error on the site, but we ran the world's first and only hybrid ELO non-ELO event, which is round one. Round one managed to not be ELO. Everybody scored normal TPs, secondary points, and UDs. Rounds 2 and 3 were ELO. If anybody's looking at the results and you think, why are they weird? That's what happened. Yep. And that is my fault.
That is, yeah, no, obviously mine. Yeah, so that was weird, slightly wonderful, but I don't think anyone cared, to be honest. I don't think anyone gave a shit.
No.
It was a bit weird, but no one cared. And then we went into round 2 anyway, and we got ELO scoring. And my favourite game to kind of watch or see happen of the entire tournament happened in round 2, where we saw Carlo play up against Bloodraven. Camille was over from Poland, and they got to see the Lannister players playing a Baratheon versus Lannister matchup. Carlo got butt fucked. It was great. Moment of the tournament as well. Moment of the weekend. Moment of the fucking weekend as well. Carlo played men, charges a unit of poor fellows. 7 dice, 7 hits. But they're weakened, and Camille's like, "Oh, I'll definitely spend the weekend." Carlo looks up and just looks him in the eye and says, "I'm going to roll more hits." Rolls 7 dice, gets 10 hits. Crit blow. Sweet, sweet nectar.
666 on the weekend. Yeah, I had the absolute pleasure to lose to Camille, to lose to Bloodraven. I played 3 games. They were all brilliant. I really, really, really enjoyed just getting to play him in person. Really great player, and really enjoyed the game. He thoroughly deserved the win, and he went 3 games unbeaten. So did Chris Eustace. Chris Eustace plays slightly lower faction. Chris Eustace takes the win, thanks to the ELO format. I think it's really super interesting that everybody enjoyed the event. Obviously, like it's a relatively casual event. It's almost we pitched it and played it as a Friday meet and greet rather than like any kind of like tournament that people are like really, really gunning for. I think everybody kind of knew that. If that was the only event, then obviously people would have taken it more seriously. But people are really just playing some games before they go into the main event, which they know that's what they're really, really trying for. But I think it was really, really interesting that everybody enjoys the event because of what other army lists, commanders, and factions people have entered. Nobody actually really cared, or at least they were incredibly understanding of the fact that the first round wasn't ELO scored. It's such an odd thing. Like, as soon as you tell people it's ELO scored, they want to enter low-rated stuff. And then that makes everybody else happy because, hey, look, I get to play against this stuff, which I almost never get to play against. I get to do all this stuff. But nobody actually cares that it's ELO scored. That part's actually fine. What they wanted to do was they wanted to play against low-rated stuff. So it's this almost like really interesting psychological thing of like, people want other people to play low-rated things and play enjoyable things and play different builds that they've never seen. But everybody assumes that other people are going to play powerful stuff and therefore they play powerful for stuff. Or more to the point, everybody understands that or thinks that there's no benefit to not playing powerful stuff. And as soon as you incentivize it, as soon as you incentivize the ELO system, people jump on it. They love it. They're really happy. But I mean, Peter's. We'll come on to it. Peter ran an ELO tournament. He's really enjoyed it. But as I was talking to him today, like it's odd because it's actually just an extension of the entire ELO ranking system.
Yeah.
People that's all the system ever does. All the system is ever trying to do is give you rewards for playing low-rated stuff and penalizing you for playing high-rated stuff. But people just don't see it that way. They just want to win. Like, they just want to win games and win tournaments. But when you tell them the way you win the tournament is by using something low, they all jump on it. But when I tell somebody the way you get your ranking up is by playing low-rated commanders, they're like, nah, you're lying. Which is funny. When they can't see it happen as a multiplier on their tournament points, they don't quite believe that it's real. They don't believe it, which I think is super interesting. And like, just a thing. It's just one of those things, like, so I'm really glad that people are getting way more interested in, and we're starting to get a lot of attention on the ELO tournament format, because I do think that it can help the game stay healthy and make people really enjoy the lists that they play with and against.
Definitely. And it is, we'll point that out again. It really is just, this is only possible because of the ELO system, the way it works, and not tournaments, but the system. So if you believe in the ELO tournaments, then believe in the system. Like, they are one and the same. And I can't point that enough. And it's something that I can talk about a lot, more so than Carlo, though Carlo designed it. I've been using it and actually been playing a lot more games than Carlo using the system, and it's something I believe in wholeheartedly, because it clearly works, right? And it creates great games. And as the organizer for the Friday, like as the TO, I didn't really organize anything. I just kind of monged around and did a load of stuff for Chris and Daryl and things while they played, and people loved it. There was no problems whatsoever. The odd rule question, Mahoney got absolutely fucking pissed out of his skull, which was absolutely hilarious. Chris said that the infamous Mahoney, he actually got more drunk than he did on a stag do that he attended, which was hilarious. And the weirdest thing as well, right? And I think this was telling for ELO again. We had two guys, Dan Mashford and Russell, who are both absolute great guys. They were not there to play A Song of Ice and Fire. They'd actually come down to the LGT to play Battle for Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings stuff. And they said that they would happily play in an ELO event of A Song of Ice and Fire because they believed that for them it created a much more balanced and fun atmosphere, but they didn't want to play the main event because they knew Night's Watch would win, and the usual negativity and everything comes out. But this point still stands. They came down and they believe in A Song of Ice and Fire enough that they tested out the ELO event, and having spoken to them both briefly at the end, they were both like, yeah, no, that was wicked. Happy. So yeah, I mean that's huge kudos there. A bachelor party, yes, Charles.
Yeah, Weasel. That's what we call it.
Yeah. So that was the ELO event. Chris won it. Bit sketchy.
Chris did win it. Inside job.
bit sketchy, and I won't go into too many details, but there's a photo of Chris receiving his certificate, and completely accidentally, he's actually making a white power sign. Which is a bit awkward, and it's just the way he's grabbed something. Oh god, it's really awkward. Anyway, Camille came second.
Point it out. I'm sure he didn't want you to point out,
Mate,
bring attention to it.
100%, I'm going to point that out. You know for a fact on this show that we like calling people out for being dickheads, and Chris, you're not. So yeah, really awkward. But we only worked that out afterwards. No, I handed out the prizes, Bruce, as the official TO of the London GT ELO. No, we mean.
Despite the fact that I did most of the round drawing, fixing the site, all that stuff.
Well, you broke it, so you know.
That's because I broke it.
But no, yeah, and it was great to meet, obviously, and Bloodraven second, and Carlo third, I guess, was okay. Bit of a shame that he came third, really. Disappointing that. Yeah. Oh well, won't go into that. So yeah, and then as Carlo said, the games ended. I want to say 8 o'clock. Around about 8 o'clock when games kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, probably in and around there. We played nearly 2 hours a game, probably not quite 2 hours a game.
Yeah, and it was awesome because there was me, it was you, the Polish guys, Camille and Sławek, some of the Dead Meta guys were hanging around for a bit. Kolko, and the guys from Just Play turned up a little bit later, and we all just sat around for a couple of hours and just drank and chatted and just like met each other and like got to know each other a little bit. And it was wicked. It was wicked. We were the only people in the hall when they were like calling last orders. There was a couple people by the bar, but we'd been walking back. We were still by the tables and things. We were chatting. There was like some people. You were playing Fire and Blood? No, Flesh and Blood. Sorry. Just like on the tables and things. It was great. It was absolutely great. So yeah.
It was really brilliant to. Loads of those guys actually, you know, I've met before. Great to see them again. Started to meet new people at that time. You know, most of the people that I'd not met before didn't really turn up till the Saturday. But yeah, it was really, really great to just sit around, chat, talk to people, kind of build those community bonds, try and, you know, you're building the framework for what will be UK scene, you know, over the next year and a half, whatever it is, you know, and it was really great to just spend time with people in person because it's been a long time.
Definitely. And for me, first time I was meeting some people, absolutely wicked. Some of the people who I thought like, oh, I tell you what was really awkward, right? Was there was this moment where me and Scott, I think it was me and Scott, or wasn't me and Scott? It was oh, what's his face? Oh no, I've forgotten his name. Who's the big Scottish guy? Not John and not Connor. The neutral player. Stephen, thank you. God, sorry, Stephen. I was chatting with Stephen. Anyway, we were talking about like games and things like this and all of a sudden these two guys are just like behind Stephen. I was like, oh, these must be 40k guys just coming to watch Song of Ice and Fire while we play on Friday. Maybe I'll explain that. Anyway, I just kind of left them to it. And then I wandered back. I was going to get a drink. I came back and they were still there and they were like chatting with people. And I was like, that's a bit weird. And I was like, who the hell are you? And he's like, oh, it's Hilo and Duggars. I had literally no concept of who these people were. And yet they've been following stats and like NRG for like the best part of 2 years now. So it's
before I met Hilo and Duggars, I would not have picked them out the crowd.
No. And I have to say, Tom, in person, you are just as cool as I thought you would be online, and you're an absolute swell guy. And I'll talk about Duggars later on because yeah, Duggars is great too. But the main event, Carlo. We actually got here early on Saturday, right? I was hungover as shit, but we did get here early.
Yeah, we're now getting to the finer points of the UK fuel shortage. Our 8-minute journey took us over half an hour because we had to drive past a petrol station and there was a half-hour queue outside of it, which we weren't even in. That was a half-hour queue to get onto the roundabout. But also, specifically, I have a quarter of a tank of petrol and have to drive 60 miles back to Durham.
More on that
so
later.
I would actually say the most stressful thing about the entire weekend was the fuel crisis. Nothing to do with the actual tournament. But that's just like...
We'll talk about how bad it was on the way back because that was mental. But
Yeah.
anyway, the Saturday event starts. Everyone was arriving on time. Very few people arrived who we were expecting. Right, I think pretty much everybody arrived who had said they were going to arrive, except from last minute pullouts that we'd have on the Friday.
Yeah.
So on Saturday morning, most people arrived. There was one guy who was late. I think who got again caught in traffic, didn't he?
Yeah.
Really quite late as well, like severely late, which was a massive shame because he did end up missing game one. But yeah. So rounds, games, the lot. I got to play Vlad in game one myself. You can see it there, and that was bloody hard. Bloody hell. Yeah, that was a hard game. And Vlad's really good player from France. But yeah,
I
the
mean,
round.
8 VPs versus 7 VPs with 9 points destroyed on each side. A game doesn't get much closer.
No. So round one came around, honed and ready, and I don't think there was any problems. Right, everyone just played honed and ready, and it was great. No issues there. I was lucky. I got to come off that win with Vlad, and I got to go into Duggars as my second game, which was great. So I got to have a proper chat with Duggars, and that was a bit more of a unfortunate game for Duggars. He gave me the crushing win in the last round, like one of his last activations, and he realised after he killed my unit that it led to bad times ahead. But you know, fantastic games. Anything for Feast for Crows, Carlo?
No, I think Fist for Crows was pretty. Yeah.
Pretty smooth sailing.
Honestly, like without sounding too surprised, I was surprised at the level at which people were playing. Like the rules questions were very minimal. Um, players were discussing rules and coming to agreements at the table. People very rarely needed to ask for any kind of rulings, anything like that. It was normally it was like, can we check? Like, we think this is that right? It's not like it was. I feel like it was never once did I ever get asked like kind of like he thinks this, I think that. Decide.
Yeah,
Like it was that, which actually maybe it's just like an online Discord thing or whatever. Like whenever a TO is asked to make a decision on a TTS game or anything like that in the past, anything that I've done with the World Cup, it always seems quite tense. It's always like, the decision to ask a TO, because it's obviously much harder at that point, is always like, well, I think it's this and they think it's that, and they're both at an absolute impasse. And when you come in, it's quite a tense situation. They think that the game rides on it, and somebody comes away pissed off. Whereas this was very much just like, we both think it's this. Can you just confirm that this is the way it works? And as soon as I just say yes or no, they're just like, great, thanks. Nothing else. Like, I was actually surprised at how easy the whole process was. And also just that almost, I was almost surprised that not a single person turned up and tried to play with 1.6 rules.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Everybody had basically all the resources they needed. Me and Chris were both prepared massively. We didn't want to tell everybody in case they didn't bring stuff, but we had prepared to be willing to give out secret missions decks. We'd prepared to be willing to give out objective cards, to have like cards for everybody's tactic decks if they hadn't brought a 2021 version of their tactics deck. None of that was needed. Everybody had their resources. Everybody knew about the cards, the edition, everything. I was so pleasantly surprised by like the high level of understanding, competency, and general like willingness to discuss the game with their opponents. It was brilliant.
Definitely, 100% agree. From everything that any rules disputes I said or came up in my games, it was like I think this, and you want to check, go to talk, get a TO if you want to check it if you're not sure. But here's the rule question, and I think it only came up really in one game, and a couple of checks from my opponent, just because he'd never played against Free Folk before. He just wanted to check that that's what the cards actually did and things. And every time Chris was like, "Yeah, no, that is right," and he was like, "Cool." And it was never. I didn't hear a single like for inverted commas, fight over a rules question come out. And we'll get more onto that later on when we talk about the players and the community and things, because I think that's really relevant. I came off the back of my second game. I went into Bloodraven in my third game, so I got to avenge Carlo, which I did.
I don't need avenging.
I don't know, mate. The Polish guys have gone home now, and you don't play on TTS. Someone needed to kick their ass. And yeah, we played this exact matchup, different game mode a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty bad for him then, and it was pretty bad for him again now. It's not a nice matchup for Camille's list. I will say though, and Bloodraven knows this because we told him so at the event, we were well disappointed that 6 poor fellow list that he threatened and brought didn't run it.
Saw no play.
Disappointing. Pardon me. So
he did bring it though. It is real.
It is a real list. He did bring it. But yeah, so Bloodraven, and then that was the end of day 1. And at the end of day 1, again, like, it was surprising actually at the end of day 1, the Saturday, that game 1 finished, and some people wanted to get back and get to places. Some people had places to go. Some people left early. But there was us. There was the Polish guys. There was the Just Play guys again. There was other people like Duggars and Hilo and people like that around. And there was I want to say about 15 of us, give or take.
Yeah.
Just
Dead Metal guys were there quite late as well.
Yeah. We just hung around and we just chatted shit for the best part of 2 to 3 hours. Nothing surprising at all.
Yeah, so we finished. I mean, so as people have seen, anybody who's seen the photos, which I'm sure we'll show in a bit, we'll get around to them. Our event was 50 people-ish, give or take. The 40k event going on just behind us in all those photos, it's 500 plus strong, right? That's actually a small event for them this year because of COVID dropouts and all that kind of stuff, travel issues. They got 10 times the entrance. They also finished after us. Come 11 o'clock, when the TO of the entire LGT, the guy running and organizing the entire thing, came round to get rid of us because he actually had to close the venue. There weren't any of those 540k players there. They'd all gone home. As soon as their game finished, they just went home. And I thought that was so disappointing. Like, I really felt like they missed like a huge part of what it was to be able to go to an event like this and be part of a community. And that we were there a tenth of the size, and if the equivalent percentage of the 40k players had stayed, they would have had 150, 200 people staying there till last orders at the bar. And instead, like, there was a group of like 10 other players who I don't even think were playing 40k. They were from another small community. So, like, I really, really enjoyed all that stuff. Sitting around afterwards, we played a card game here or there, and just chatted, talked about stuff, not even related to the game, nothing like that. Just get to know people, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
This was the actual photo I took because I went to the toilet, and this is exactly what I was saying, like, in terms of, like, not surprised, but just like how crazy it was. That's the whole event space that you can see there, and that little group over there, all the way back there. Let's zoom all the way in. Song of Ice and Fire. You can see everyone sat around, chilling, having glasses, and aside from that, you've got the odd player here and there, like playing games late on, but they're all not the 40k stuff. And it was fantastic to stand, because we were playing, like, I wouldn't say it was a dip, but where you came in was like raised above because of the banking on the track. It was really interesting to come in from where the toilets were, look across the hall, and see the only real community of any games left was the song one. And I just felt, for me, that was like a moment of like, we are clearly awesome people.
I'll call it drunken clarity, because Mickey was probably absolutely hammered by this point.
I mean, I was more drunk on the Friday, but
I'm surprised this picture isn't blurry.
I mean, it is a little bit though. So yeah, so that was amazing. And we we obviously that was I guess the end of Saturday, and it was great. And I have to say, Slavek, who went on to win the tournament, which we'll talk about later on. Slavek is either some kind of international criminal or is just the best storyteller because we had an absolute great laugh.
Can't it be both?
I mean, maybe. All I'll say is that there's an au pair somewhere with 3,000 euros just in cash, ready to go. And anyone who
At
was
a
there will know
moment's
that
notice.
one. But that was an absolutely fantastic story. And it was great. I mean, I spent a lot of time chatting with Colin Colco, who I've played before. In fact, many moons ago, his daughter fell off a bunk bed and broke her wrist, and he had to go and sort that out in the middle of our TTS game.
I remember that story, but I did not know that that was Colco.
Yeah, it was literally Colco. Yeah.
There we go.
And
Colin
actually
D,
meeting
as
him.
in chat.
Yeah. Colin, and meeting him in person, absolute legend. Had a great time chatting. And yeah, like honestly, the guys there, fantastic. The community for A Song of Ice and Fire of that event. Again, I'll reiterate this later on. There was not a single player of the 44 players that we had.
46 day
46.
one, we did lose a couple of people, partly because of the fuel crisis and traffic in London. A couple of people couldn't make it back on the second day. But yeah, 46 day one, 44 day two.
Yeah. So of the 46 on day one, the 44 on day two, none of them whatsoever were nasty individuals. None of them are not people that I would gladly sit around and have drinks with. They were all absolute top quality people, to the point where, and I will mention this because I think Chris has already said this. We did the guys, the TOs did a thing where you voted for your two most awesome opponents. This was the most sporting player award. There was not a single player at the event who didn't get at least one vote. And if you think about that, genuinely think about that, that's not like one or two people getting lots of votes and everyone else not getting any votes and things like this. No, like literally every single player had someone that they played against that thought that person was their best opponent in terms of the most awesome, which just says everything about the community, everything about the players there. And we'll get on to the winners of the various different awards and things later on. But I think that's hugely telling of the event and the community and everything. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Carlo.
Nope. First day was all good stuff. Everything went swimmingly well. This was the first point at which we were getting an inkling of like, how many people had turned up on the day, what the full size of the event was. Obviously, there was some nerves about whether or not people were going to show with the increasing travel difficulty, fuel crisis, all that kind of stuff. Pleased that it was 46 on the day. And as we'll come on to, that incomplete 64, we're basically halfway between that 32 bracket and that 64 bracket. We're in slight limbo as to whether or not we will have a single basically standout winner. I won't say undefeated player because we'll get onto the technicalities of it. People will see, but a single player who is ahead of the rest of the field after 5 games, or if it will take 6. And that's when we first started talking about the possibility that we might make the event 5 rounds, also because of difficulties with people getting home for travel. And also, we'd found out that the 40K awards were going to be at the exact same time as our own. And that was going to cause some real problems because they had a massive live loudspeaker system built into the entire thing. And we had me shouting at the top of my voice.
I will say, and any of the players who came down will probably agree with me. Multiple times when I was playing my opponent, like the 40K would do an announcement, you'd legit have to stop talking to your opponent. Like,
yeah,
you couldn't talk over. Like, it was really annoying.
yeah, well,
I get why they did it. I can't complain. It was a bit annoying. Anyway, so that took us on to day 2, where we woke up and in our stupidity of the place we were staying. By the way, our Airbnb hostess, amazing. She got 5 stars for everything, and she gave us a 5-star review. She was awesome. So shout out to Marianne. We in our infantile heads, we thought it was fine on Saturday night for Daryl, myself, Dan, and Carlo to go back to the place. But Scott who's staying in a tent. He was going to come back with us as well because she'd put up a 5th bed for him, so he didn't have to stay in a tent. That was all well and good on Saturday night. Sunday morning,
when we didn't have that stuff.
That wasn't wise on Sunday morning because we crammed into a car to the point where at one point Carlo literally had to grab a bag and thrust it into someone's face because he couldn't see any of his mirrors. So yeah, that was pretty mental on the Sunday morning.
I'd already nearly been hit by cars even when I had mirrors because again, fuck London and fuck every driver in London. They are maniacs and the worst people I have ever driven near. I cannot. I'm not driving back there ever again. Next time is a train journey.
Yeah, I mean
Train journey and an Uber. Not worth the drive.
It wasn't on the way there, but on the after the event had finished and things. That was a legit moment where I thought we were gonna die because a guy decided to we were like pulling off off a roundabout to come off, and a guy undercut us to then cut in front of us and go like further. Like, what on earth are you doing? Yeah. Honestly, Bruce,
Craig, if I'd been on my bike, I would be dead.
yeah, you would be 100%.
I would be dead. Somebody would have killed me.
Like. It was. I think it was the fuel shortage, man. It clearly got to us and also London.
Maybe.
Apparently Moscow's worse. Jesus.
I don't doubt it, to be honest.
Oh. So anyway, Sunday comes around, and Sunday we get there to the event, and they say most people turn back up. There's only 1 or 2 people who couldn't make it, which is unfortunate. And games went ahead swimmingly. We got started on time. Games played through, and that's when disaster struck. In round 4, there were 3 tables that were left with undefeated players on. The top 6, if you will, at the time. And one of those games, Suavek beat his Night's Watch opponent in a Night's Watch mirror. I managed to beat my Targaryen opponent, playing Mother of Dragons. And then Dean, playing his Targaryens against Tom's Night's Watch. They managed to completely fuck up everything, although it actually ended up being really helpful. And they drew.
Oh, I actually would say save everything.
Yeah, they literally saved things. They drew. And not only did they draw, they perfect drawed.
Yeah, they truly drawed. It was interesting, actually. I was very I know that people are interested in tournaments, and I'm interested in tournaments, and I love it when people put them on the stat because I can watch them from outside. I was very interested to find out how closely Ariakas was watching the tournament, and that he was very concerned that this wasn't a draw and that this was a wrong submission. But yeah, like it was such a surprising situation that I stood there and we double, triple calculated that it was a draw. They had same VPs. They did end on time. If you click Hilo now or Dean, I don't actually know what the score was. They had gone quite far. There were a lot of things dead. So they were technically 4-4 in VPs. It did end on time, and I will say this: a lot of people playing Winds of Winter ended on time. It is about the only game mode that did. Me and Chris spoke about it afterwards. Maybe considering, considering what happened, we maybe wouldn't run it again. Not because it's not a good mode, but because it was the only mode that people were entirely unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
And without, shall we say, blaming the players had hugely slowed down because they were so unfamiliar with the game, with the secret missions. we were about half an hour into the round before most players had drafted their missions yet and set up. And that is going to cause you a huge problem. We already gave very, what we thought generous 2-hour rounds. And so the game ended on time, which is why it's 4-4. But then what that distinctly was identical points left on the board, particularly because of actually specifically because of a Drogo assassination of a Night's Watch captain, which left the points on the board identical. And we had a full draw, which meant that now we had 2 players rather than 3 who were going to be top table. And at that point, we knew that we would be able to play 5 rounds, and actually it was going to effectively alleviate a lot of time problems that we were sort of in, and it was going to make award ceremony much better, give us all a lot of breathing room, let everybody enjoy the day more. I hope and I believe. I was fixing the round when Chris made the announcement. He says that everybody was absolutely okay with that decision. Obviously, like it hurt both Tom and Dean's chances of, getting back in it, that they would benefit from a 6th round and a chance to still win the event. But I'm pretty sure everybody was very happy with that decision and totally on board with it. So thanks to all the players for, allowing us to make that decision on the fly and nobody getting upset about losing a game to play or that it might affect their final position.
It was certainly, we'll get onto it, was certainly disappointing not to have the 6th game, but I would never blame the TOs for making that decision. You wanted to play, while we were there, I think every player just wanted to play as many games as they could. But when the decision came through, I don't think there was a single individual player who was like, damn. I think everyone was like, that makes a lot of sense and is probably the right call. And as it turns out, which we'll get to later on with the travel, it 100% was the right call. I think, on behalf of the TOs. So that left the awkward thing, which put me as the only other 4-0 player against Suavek in the final. And I don't have access, which we'll come on to later, to lots of raiders. I should have bought some more raiders or asked Carlo to bring them. Because it was Dance of Dragons and he shot me off the board. It's recorded. I did make some mistakes in that I set up a trap, which he's a good player. I don't think he's going to fall into. We talked about, he even saw like the game plan from the off. He knows what's going to happen. And he didn't fall into the trap. The trap didn't work as well as I expected because I'd made the mistake. And because of all of that, he just blasted me off the table and won the event. He didn't table me. I got Endless Horde on the last round and brought a unit on so he couldn't kill it. But that was it. It was a pretty... Unfortunately, it was a pretty... It started off very tense in the final, and then round 3 came along, and that was it in round 3. The crossbowman activated, and blast, 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 blast. So, that left Suavek, who, by the way, fantastic guy, absolutely fantastic guy, as tournament winner, and Hilo coming in at 2nd by beating Dean on tertiaries. So yeah, but like we've always said, and this is very important to anybody, that we've always said, you shouldn't look at just the winner. You should look at the players who are all going basically 4-1 or 5-0 in this case. Look at all of the players who've only maybe dropped 1 or 2 games, because if you're seeing people up there running factions where they've only dropped 1 game, then that can just be a bad matchup, a bad game. We've always said that. Certainly if it's bad factions, and there is actually one person I want to shout out. Bloodraven went 4-1 with his Lannisters. Couldn't get the word out. So shout out to Bloodraven there. The only person he ended up losing to was the guy who finished just above him, which was me. Purely based on tertiaries, right? And
he just wants to point that out again. By the way, I beat Bloodraven.
Well, no, I keep putting it out because Bloodraven gets really sad. Plus, because Bloodraven always says this, yes, but Mickey, I'm not competitive. Which we all know is bollocks. Camille's competitive. Camille, and even my other matchup, Spencer James, Sir Arthur Dane, who, like I said in last week, I was like, I really hope he doesn't come in here swinging heads off. The guy is built, like he's big, he's tall, and he's really built, and he's bald, and he looks like he could be he looks like he could be Sir Arthur Dane if you just gave him a sword. um, and yeah, he was wicked actually. Really liked Spence. He's a great matchup. Yeah, so huge shout out to those. But the biggest shout goes out to, where is he? Adam Harbinson, who went 3-2 with Baratheons, which is a massive shout out. Baratheons being, as we know, eternally not very good. And he still managed to go 3-2 with them, winning the Baratheon Best in Faction. And yeah, putting in an absolute shift. I believe the only games he lost was he lost to a Lannister in round 1, and he lost to Night's Watch, the Cancer list as it's getting called now, in round 4. He beat another Night's Watch player, he beat a Targaryen player, and he beat a Free Folk player.
4 of his 5 games were wipeouts.
Yeah.
For and against.
Yeah.
All of his games took about 1 hour of the 2 allowed hours. First time he submitted his first game, I honestly thought it had been by accident, and I went over to check why they weren't playing anymore, and it turned out that he'd finished his game. Most people were on round 2. He and his opponent had just gone out at it straight away, and he'd been tabled, and he was well happy about it. He'd loved the game, so yeah, really big shout out to Adam, because he went out there swinging every single game, and did well for it. I do think that's the way Baratheons almost, like, they're almost supposed to be a control faction. They're supposed to be a defense faction. But I think the only way you're going to get 3-2 is if you really go out there swinging and killing some stuff. So he showed some real good play. Really, really well done to him.
I also wanted to give a bit of a shout out to Ross as well. Drogon, who a lot of you see, he was the most improved player from the ELO event that we ran, not the ELO events, from the NRG2 event that we ran. He was the guy who had earned the most points, and he came into the ELO event on Friday. I think he won a game, and then he went 2 games down, and he wasn't feeling great. He's like, oh man, I'm supposed to be coming back up. I'm better than this. He's feeling pretty down. He came into day 1, and he started off with a loss. And I spoke to him after the game. He played against Dan Harwood, by the way. He's an absolute great guy. And he came out of the game and was like, oh man, I'm just not doing good. And chatted to him, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna come back up. And he went on, and he went literally 3 games in a row, 3 wins, beating players. And then his last game, he got to play against Bloodraven, which he said he really enjoyed. And it was a case of just it was an identical mirror. Like, they literally run, every component of the list was identical, and Bloodraven just played it better. And Ross came away really happy as well, which was good to see, because I think he was feeling pretty down about his performance, and he was happy the way he was in the end. So shout out to Drogon there. And of course, Dan, our boy Dan, who we'll come to later on when we look at some photos, coming on as the best Stark player, beating out Belgroth by 1 secondary point, who had a great event. He says he absolutely loved it apparently. So we'll hear more from Dan. Dan's posted some stuff up already. He really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And one of his army, one of his armies he put out was up for best painted as well, which was fantastic. We'll get onto that in a minute. Cool. Yeah. I was stopping off at anybody else. Oh yeah. I'll mention it because we'll talk about it. Rupert was best free folk. He beat me out by 32 tertiary points. And that was
twice as much stuff as you, Mickey.
He literally killed nearly twice as much stuff. And if you look at it, it's hilarious. He played a free folk mirror match. So if you look, he got 12 points destroyed, 32 points destroyed, because he played the free folk mirror, and he just killed loads of stuff in that. And yeah, he beat me there fair and square. But we talked about it a bit after the game, and yeah, it is what it is. It's the case of going in the final, right? You go into the final, and then because you lose the final, usually pretty badly if you're not careful, because a lot of games happen to be crushing, you end up not coming second, or not necessarily doing the best. But yeah, that's my fault and not his. He played really well and he definitely deserved it. I was actually really glad as well in the end because um, I didn't like the prize support and things. I didn't care about it. There was nothing there that I particularly wanted, no free folk stuff. Whereas he was able to pick up a Greyjoy faction starter and some Iron Makers for his new Greyjoys, which I've already got, and shown you guys. So I was actually glad that he'd have got that stuff anyway. But it does suck not being the best free folk player. It's true. I'm not the best. I tried. I tried. I set out to win the tournament, Carlo, and I nearly got there. Failed at the last hurdle.
I mean, I told you you weren't winning the tournament. Like
I know.
he asked me specifically, "Oh, how do I write a list that will beat Night's Watch?" And I was like, "You don't."
And there's
Like,
not in that game mode. There's
no,
one
no.
game, there's one thing we can do, which is the 7 raiders, 3 NCUs at 4 points, and you just go look. And we'll get onto this
I
later
mean, I
on.
don't really think that that's.
Well,
I think that's a fluke, not a strategy.
no, but I believe it's the only viable one, which is ridiculous that you fluke it with that list rather than try with anything else. Um,
Yeah, exactly,
didn't land it
exactly.
anyway. Well, no, I set out. I told everyone here I did set out with it. I did set out with that intention, and I failed at that. But I'm not disappointed that I failed with that because in the end of the day, you lose out to a better player like that. So again, my fault because I didn't beat Vlad harder on day one. That's what I should have done. So anyway, who was the next best faction?
Sonic
Sonic.
Assassin.
There
You
we
know
go.
what?
Yes.
I think he's got 2 wins. First 2 wins. I was walking around and then I was like, come the end of the first day. I remember like walking along the table and I'm being like, oh my god, is that Greyjoys basically on the top, like
Near the
on
top.
not quite the top table? I was like, what the hell is going on? I mean, the universe corrected itself. Clearly, he's a very, very good player, but he was that. Obviously, for anybody who's, I'm sure everybody knows, but for anybody who doesn't know, this is Greyjoys without their Heroes 1 and without Trappers. All they're allowed, unfortunately, by UK release, and only just in time, was their starter box and Iron Makers, and they only just got Iron Makers. So he's done phenomenally well. He was doing really, really well, and then got towards the top of the standings, and that's where you just start to hit really, really crunch lists.
He
And
met
I mean,
MOD.
he losses, but he still did very, very well with the Great Tree faction.
He got eaten by MOD, and then a surprise loss by the man himself, Kolko, who ended up 4th in the event. He was actually out of the running in the first round, losing his first round to Free Folk. He went on an absolute barnstormer and basically smashed everyone else after that.
Yeah, everyone
So
will remember last week. Kolko was my pick to win. Obviously, I massively jinxed him. He lost that first round. I don't know whether or not he was doing it to prove a point, or if he necessarily thought he was picking the best lists each time. If he was doing it to prove a point, I don't know why he entered Mother of Dragons at all. But he did play. I believe it's No Dragon.
yep,
Yes. No Dragon, Khal Drogo every single game.
yep.
So in some ways, like fair play to him. Like I do think it's a good list. It's interesting because I've always said that I don't think that Mother of Dragons is a problem. I think that Targaryens as a faction are a problem. In the same way that Night's Watch as a faction are a problem. Night's Watch also have additional things, such as Offal, who's an additional on top problem. But yeah, I think it was interesting. He was in the chat before. Carl, why did you only ever run Khal Drogo? Was it that you thought it was the better list into the mode and the faction each time? Or were you actively avoiding Mother of Dragons? And if you were, why did you bring a Mother of Dragons list?
I think he bought the Mother of Dragons because he could. And
Yeah.
I distinctly remember he said in round 1 he thinks he should have just picked the Mother of Dragons list when he lost to Free Folk. Funnily
But
enough,
you did,
yeah,
not seem like I didn't have any idea what I was talking about when he recovered to his 4-1. Showed that he's still, he is a class player. And big props to Jacob for beating him in that first round.
yeah, huge props. Jacob Is it no? I always get this wrong. Is it Jacob Bailey or is it Bailey Jacob? Because I got this wrong like so many times. It's Bailey. It's Bailey, not Jacob. Ah,
So Jacob with glass. There we go.
yes.
Glaze.
So Jacob with Glace, but he's Bailey. He's Bailey. So it confused the shit out of me. But he's really active in the hard home chat on the main Discord. And he's a lovely guy actually as well. We talked about Free Folk a lot, and yeah, he says he would have changed his Mance Raider list, but he doesn't have all the components to make it the best. But yeah, no. Other stuff then. I guess we will. Was that the lowest faction? No, neutrals. It was
the
Stephen.
lowest faction. Yes. It was the lowest faction.
Winner,
Mickey.
the lowest faction winner. Jesus Christ, you cretin. Right. Stephen McCormick, of course,
Stephen McCormick
won by default. I was still so gutted that when they handed out, someone said, the best faction, or the best player for the neutral faction, Stephen McCormick. You got to go up. I was still really disappointed that Carlo didn't shout at the top of her lungs, "Not a faction," because they're not a faction.
Stephen was also doing very, very well. I think he took 2 wins to begin with.
He win then lost apparently.
Yeah,
lost
2 and 3 after the first day. So he was up there, and then again started to hit into some pretty hard hitting lists, some hard matchups. So really well done.
Wow, Vlad really smashed him in the Winds of Winter. So yeah, which is a big shame, obviously. But shout out to Vlad. Vlad was a very good player. Actually, surprised at how good Vlad. I knew he was good, but not as good as. So, other people who turned up. We'll talk about Duncan in a minute, but Duncan Rhodes was there. He got a win. The man got a win. More than one win.
He got 2.
3.
Pretty impressive with Jamie, to be honest.
He played Jamie every round. Yes, he played Tywin in the last round. Oh, yeah. Duncan, if he watches this back, I'm disappointed. I want to see Jamie every round.
Duncan was really pleased because he got to play 5 different factions in the 5 rounds, and I believe he doesn't get to play as often as he would like. He hasn't played against a lot of factions, and that's what he specifically said. Like, he was so pleased that he got 5 different factions, and that just that's great of an event in general, isn't it? Like, I actually wouldn't expect that if I went to a 5-round event, I would get 5 different factions. Actually, the last few tournaments that I've been to, 75% of everything that I played against has been Night's Watch.
Neutrals are not a faction. It is known. So yeah, no. Duncan really enjoyed himself though, and was saying like great things, which was great as well. And was it Liam O'Connell who ended up getting?
Liam took home the wooden spoon, and
yeah.
And a lot of prizes for a lot of prize support for having done so.
Yeah. It sounds like he enjoyed himself.
Yeah, he and his friend Owen came along together, and I believe and hope that they both had a great time. And I really hope that they'll be back again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Also, it's hilarious. We got Daryl to step in for a game because of Liam didn't have an opponent in the last round, and he played against Liam, and he beat him, which was you just feel really bad for Daryl there, being like, why did you go and beat someone in the actual tournament? Yeah, you gave him a good game, but at least he appreciated the game, and Liam really enjoyed himself. So.
Interestingly enough, Liam voted for him as best sporting.
As if Daryl got a vote.
Daryl wasn't even up for the award. He wasn't actually supposed to be able to be voted for. But there you go. So Daryl still gave him a great game.
That's actually brilliant.
Still thoroughly enjoyed it. Daryl played 1 game and came away with 1 best sporting vote. So
legendary, absolutely legendary.
For Nobnurb, how did House Lannister perform? So Bloodraven was the faction master, coming in at 7th. Lannisters, I believe.
We can go work out the average.
No, well, the real question is, right, one of the things that you need to discuss is Lannisters were not in the running to win the event from a very early round. I
Round
think,
3.
yeah, definitely by round 3, all Lannisters had already lost a game. So
the end of round.
There's where they finished up, there's where their average position was, what their average results were, and then there's also that concept of like, from very early on, there wasn't going to be a Lannister winner. They were effectively not in the running for the event. It was mostly dominated by Night's Watch and Targaryens. Obviously, Mickey was in there with the Free Folk, and for a surprising while, James was carrying some Greyjoys up towards the top.
By the end of day 1, though, I'd knocked out the last Lannister, I think, that was still in contention. That was Blood.
No, that was Bloodraven.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because I knocked out Vlad first game, Lannister. I knocked out
3.
Duggar's second game, Lannister, and I knocked out Bloodraven third game, Lannister. And I think that by the end of the third game, all the Lannisters were out. In fact, the only 6 undefeated at that time were myself with Free Folk, Dean with Targaryens,
3 Night's Watch,
Spence with Targaryens, and the 3 Night's Watch.
Yeah. So at the end of day 1, there was, it was top heavy, right? Like, I mean, it's probably time to get on to, like, we talked about the event and all that kind of crap, right? It's probably time to, like, broach the big subject. Like, people have already done a little bit of selective cropping, as some people have mentioned.
Yeah.
But, we've got Night's Watch, Targaryens, Free Folk, Lannister. That is our standings. We go Targ. We have to go quite far before we find Baratheons. It's down at 14. Then it's like Baratheons, Stark, Greyjoy, then neutrals as the order at which the best players finished. But it's a big jump from what is Night's Watch, Targaryen, basically. Free Folk, Lannisters, all relatively in contention, right?
But they're the only, in the first 13, they're the only 3 factions that.
Yeah. So a bit of selective cropping resulted in some arguments about the fact that somebody said, well, here's Night's Watch, Targs. Did anybody expect anything different? I do think that, I mean, I didn't expect anything different.
No.
Like, to me, 100%, like, as much as I rip on him, I think that Mickey's a very good player. I would not have put £1 bet on Mickey winning the tournament at all. To me, 100% it was going to be won by a Targaryen or a Night's Watch. I had no doubts that it was one of those two. The thing is that I don't have a problem with it. And, like, I find it odd, right? So I actually find it odd that... What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, to me, Night's Watch winning a tournament is to be expected. I find it odd that it creates a situation where suddenly people argue about the balance. If you're arguing about this right now, then it's because you still are not convinced by the thousands of results that we have on A Song of Ice and Fire stats that already tell you Night's Watch are the most powerful faction. If you think a tournament changes that, it doesn't. It is known that Night's Watch are already more powerful. Like, I'm not hurt by it. I'm not angry by it. Sometimes, I'm angry when they release new things and it's still going to make it even more powerful and doesn't fix anything, and it makes things worse. But, like, for people to argue and discuss over it, well, if you're arguing about it, it's because you still don't believe in what A Song of Ice and Fire stats tells you, which is that it is known. It is known. Insert "it is known" meme. Night's Watch will win the tournament. If you're still getting upset about it, then we have problems. You just need to, like, come to accept that is the way things are, and think about different ways to promote different aspects of your community. I would say that there was a joking eye roll when Slavek won the tournament with Night's Watch. I don't think anybody there was upset about Night's Watch winning the tournament. I really don't. Like, I think everybody was fine with it. You know, like, I think that everybody enjoyed the tournament, and I think that nobody was upset by the results. Nobody was annoyed by it. You know, I'm not trying to speak for everybody there. Like, maybe there were some people who were a bit annoyed that their faction, maybe they're a bit annoyed by a single game where they just got steamrolled. It is in the moment. It can obviously be pretty annoying if you have no chance, if you're just getting, particularly if you're getting tabled. But I don't like. It's almost like being used as like a political thing, and I'm like, there's no politics here. It's like this argument has already been settled in my mind. In my mind, if you're still having to convince people, then why are you trying? Like, you're wasting your breath. They'll never be convinced. A tournament, a high level tournament with a big number of entrants, with a high level of play, it doesn't matter who won or who lost. It's on individual performances, but it is incredibly predictable that it is a Night's Watch winner. So incredibly predictable.
Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, like,
to give people a little bit
honest,
of an
I
idea.
actually love Peter's message. Yeah. Night's Watch winning a tournament is like Putin winning an election, right? Like, it wasn't an election. Yeah, like, only one person got to vote, and it was Putin. You know, like, it's not that bad. Like, yes, people can upset the status quo. We will talk about other tournaments. Actually, surprisingly, there was a few tournaments run over the weekend. It was the only one Night's Watch won, right? But that's the whole thing about people selecting the data they want, right?
Yeah.
People who want to say Night's Watch are powerful, they're just going to grab this one tournament and be like, that was the most important one. Look, Night's Watch won it. Targaryens came, Night's Watch, Targaryens. End of list. Like, let's not talk about the rest. But the point of stats is that it uses every single result. You don't need to work out these things. You don't need to selectively pick and choose the data. It's already calculated for you. Swatch are known to be a significant margin ahead of the rest of the field. People should not be made to feel bad for playing it, and I don't believe that anybody at the tournament was. And people need to get their enjoyment from the game beyond the fact that they might get tabled by Night's Watch. Yeah. And I think that there are a good number of people who got tabled by Night's Watch while playing not Night's Watch. And I think that they all enjoyed the tournament and they all have no real issues with the event or their opponent for running that list. I'm not saying they don't have any issues with the balance, that they don't think that the balance should be better, but they don't blame their opponent for running it, and they don't have an issue with it. I think, not to speak for all the entrants, maybe if any of them in the chat and they say, like, actually, I was really fucked off that there was so many Night's Watch, or that I had to play Othel twice, or any of that, then, you know, do let me know. But it's just the way things are. Like, that is the reality we will live with, guys. Stop looking for a balance patch to fix it, because it's not coming soon. I know they tell you it is, but they always tell you it is. We always think it's just around the corner.
1.6 to 2021. Who were the people here sitting play games because it's not coming?
Yeah, and it took 6 months longer than they said it would. Right?
And then when it came out, everyone got super sad.
This one's going to come out roughly winter of 2021, 2022. Honestly, mid 2022 is probably the earliest we can expect this, right? So just, you know, like, enjoy the game, try and be the best in your faction. I think that Faction Masters was very, very important to the event. Yeah. Promoting the sportsmanship side of the event and just enjoying the games together and all that kind of stuff, I think is so, so important. It's your outlook on the game that matters about whether or not you care about the balance. I mean, I care about the balance, but I try not to complain about it, and I never blame my opponent if I'm beaten by a stronger list.
Yep.
Just, I really implore people to just, like, have a healthier attitude towards the obvious imbalances in the game.
noticing them and pointing them out and saying that they're a problem is not the same as then creating a negative atmosphere. And this is what stats has for a long time dealt with, I guess, in a bad way. And that's partially down to me. It's partially down to the way Carlos talks about the game and things like that. It is our fault. But in the end of the day, we notice the imbalance. We point the imbalance and say, this isn't balanced, guys. This isn't good. But then we go, right, we accept that it's not balanced. What do we do now? And, you know, the ELO and things come about, whereas we're still in this perception, we're still in this period where people are like, oh my god, I'm not going to play the game because it's imbalanced. I'm still playing the game, and I knew I would go into that game against Suavek, and I knew I probably wouldn't win. And I didn't go, oh my god, Night's Watch. I just kind of sat there and went, well, I'll do what I can, and I'm not going to complain at Suavek. I said exactly the same thing to Tom. I said to Tom, you know what, Tom? You did really well. Well done. Coming second with Night's Watch, you know, or coming second at all is just still good. You're clearly a good player. But I do want to see you play another faction than Night's Watch. I want you to go out there and play another faction because I want to see how good you really are. Because I don't think Night's Watch does you any justice. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see from players. I saw Suavek play neutrals the day before, and he did okay with the neutrals in the ELO event. He didn't do amazing. He lost some games. But he played some games, and it was clear he understood them. But I want to see that from players. I want to see those players going, yeah, you're clearly good. I want to see you play a different faction. Not because I don't want to see you play Night's Watch. I just want to see how good you actually really are. And if you're really good, you'll pull down good results with other factions. And I think there are players out there like that. I think Dean Rothwell with his Targaryens. I actually think Dean is a very good player. Hopefully he doesn't hear me say that. Because Dean is a known memer, and we'll leave it at that. A very well-known memer on the main Discord. And I think he's a very good player. I think Dave Toon, actually, I want to give a moment for Dave Toon. So, long story short, Dave had been giving us some grief about stats and kind of what it was doing for him.
Dave hasn't always said the most positive things about stats.
Dave has not always been the most positive stats, and we've had conversations with him, and he's always said, you know what, the way I type it doesn't do it any justice. I much better to speak in person. And we were able to speak properly in person. And Dave, for all of the things that we necessarily don't see eye to eye with, we chatted, and he is an absolute spot-on bloke. His two sons
Dave
as well.
was the standout most sporting winner of the event.
Yep.
Every single opponent voted for him.
Yep.
Every single player loved playing with him. He came with both his sons, and all three of their armies are beautifully painted. All three were nominated for Best Painting Army nominations. Daniel Toon took away Best Single Individual Painted Miniature. So it is pretty, you know, their whole hobby side of things.
Yeah.
Painting, sportsmanship, great opponents, great people to talk to. It is all there. They have the whole community thing bang on, and I was so pleased that the three of them came and that we had a great time, because I'm not going to lie, Dave, based on Discord interactions, I thought I was going to end up arguing with you at the tournament. And that is not how it went, you know, but I have to say, you know, everybody well knows that I am not particularly well received on Discord either. Shock horror. I'm not well received on Discord. No, never.
I tell you what makes it all the better as well. I was telling Carlo this on the way back. And where is he? Stephen Reed. Where is he? Because this is what it was about for us. As running a tournament, we wanted to hear stories like this, or this is kind of like what we wanted. I don't think it's what we expected to hear. But Stephen, Waiting for Virtue. Yeah, so again, he's quite common on the Discords. Really nice guy, by the way, having met him, really spot on guy. He used to play against one of a name you've definitely heard around here, Prince Whiskey, who is Jack Daniels. His name is Jack Daniels. His handle is Prince Whiskey. who again, by the way, great guy. They used to play each other a lot, and unfortunately, Jax had to move away. And as a result, it's left just Steve where he was. And Steve literally told me on day one, I was going to drop the game. I was going to stop playing because my opponent had left and had no one to play with. And he found out by coming to the GT, the Toon family live like a mile away from his house. So he's come to the GT and met players at the GT who he can now game with. He's going to stay in the community, and he literally came up and said, I'm going to keep playing this game because I came here and I met these people. What you guys do is amazing. And for me, that was like, I didn't know what to say. I was just like, that's amazing, because that's the whole point. As much as we complain about meta and balance and all this, community is the most important thing. And it's not our community, by the way. It's not Stats community. It's the A Song of Ice and Fire community. I think some people get this idea that they want their communities and their bubbles in the world. No, we just want the game to be good and the game to have people. And when Stephen said that to me, and obviously I spoke to Dave, and Dave was, as I say, spot on. It was, an emotional moment, as much as an emotional moment there could be. I wasn't exactly gushing from the eyelids, being like, "Oh my god, this was amazing," but it did hit home as to like the importance of events like this, and actually what the game is all about. So, no, I really hope, Dave, seeing as you're listening, you get some games in with Steve, and then if you do lose to him, you won't have to go and sit in a different part of the house because he can just leave. That's what they do, by the way. The Toon family, if they lose, they sit in different parts of the house because they get really angry with each other. He was just telling me about. Great. I'm the same with my dad. Exactly the same. So.
And to Weasel, right?
Yeah.
You know what? There is actually a surprising number of people, probably an unreasonable number of people that it's almost slightly offensive, who are like, "You're actually all right in person." You're actually all right guy. I actually just didn't think you were. So yeah,
you are. Your Discord manner definitely doesn't help. You are very matter of fact, straight to the point. But yeah, no, it's I am mad as a
the
hatter.
top person of the event that I don't hope to see again. And I've played plenty of competitive games in the past. There were always somebody at a card game event or something like that, and you're just like, God, I hope that guy's not there. He's a total twat. I'm sure like that guy's known to cheat. That guy's known to like, I mean, like, that you got to shuffle that guy's deck because he's known to stack his deck, like all this stuff. Like, not a single person there that I'm not like, God, I hope they're at the next event that I go to.
We were actually talking about it, weren't we? In the 40k event, the top tables of 40k literally had a judge, for want of a better term, watching the game. And we don't mean watching them play. We're actually straight up watching every movement of the game and everything, because there's that many arguments at the top tables of the 40k stuff. And like the closest I got to an argument in my last game when I was playing at Suavek was Suavek says, "Oh, are you allowed to pivot and end over a unit?" I was like, "Yeah, as long as you then have movement left." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And that was it. That was literally it. That was our argument. So yeah, I mean, honestly, again, I'll say it again for the last time. The Song of Ice and Fire community at the London GT, from both a TO on the Friday, a player on the Saturday, Sunday. Carlo, from your perspective, a TO as well? Spot
Yeah,
on.
I don't want to sound too surprised, but I was surprised at how much I enjoyed TOing it on the day. I still hate the whole organization and trying to get people, trying to herd cats into signing up onto the site and having their lists in on time. So humongous shout out to Chris for all that stuff. Emailing Simon, humongous. Like, we haven't really spoken about it. We'll get to the pictures. Huge pride support from Simon. Chris did huge amounts of work talking with them, going backwards and forwards on what that would be. Chris did so much stuff in the background. So it's such a huge thank you to Chris. I could not have it. Chris talks about how like he first, Chris was the first one to be in contact about the LGT, the first person to kind of float this idea of running it. Chris had initially said to me, "Would I run it?" And pretty much we both came to the conclusion relatively quickly that I couldn't run it without him. I think he could run it without me, but I couldn't run it without him. Is the way I would say. And I'm really pleased that I ran it and we ran it. I actually found I was expecting to be very disappointed that I didn't get to play, but actually I was absolutely fine with just running the event on the day. I enjoyed meeting people more than I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed just being able to get out and be part of the community, more than I thought I would. So yeah, like so pleased with how the event went.
Mhm. Now, there are a lot of images we took from the event. Say Scott was running around taking images like an absolute madman. I've just got a selection of them here. A load of these are up on the Facebook group. A load more of these, actually. I think there's something stupid like several gigabytes, like 6 gigabytes worth of photos that we took or something like that.
I've not been through them all yet, so
No. But there's
there's a
loads
lot.
up on the NRG Facebook group. Carlo, I don't know if you want to drop a link in chat for that, or if Daryl, you're still listening, or Scott's listening, can you drop a link to that Facebook group in the chat, so people can go and have a look through all the photos in their own time. But I've got a selection here that I'm just going to go through. This was from the Friday ELO event. We've got Carlo playing against. Was that game? The previous game, wasn't it?
That's I played against 2 dead meta guys. I
Yes.
think I played Fizzwiz first.
That was it, yeah.
Harbo in my last game. I would probably be playing one or the other of them.
Also get a nice close up there of Camille looking very kind of like expectantly at his forces, trying to work out how to get a win. And good old Kieran Scabman in the back, who will no doubt do a fantastic blog on the weekend. So check out Scabman's blog. I bet you it's going to be awesome. We've then got loads more pictures of armies moving around the table. The painting quality of armies was fairly spot on. I felt disappointed. This wasn't, someone else was using my lists on the Friday, but people really did do well to paint models. And oh, look at that, Russell's all beard. Oh yeah, there was lots of beer, loads of beer on Friday, and these cans, whatever, this yeah, great stuff. Carlo doesn't know because he doesn't drink. Great stuff. So yeah, loads and loads of photos. I'm just going to keep rattling through these. There you go. That's the Friday event again.
Again, pretty much an empty hall, right? Well,
Yeah.
well, not quite empty. There was like a doubles 40k tournament, but again wrapped up pretty early. I think I think we did really well. I've seen this picture. It looks like I'm about to resign. Actually, it looks like I am in a complete anger this game. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a Baratheon mirror, Stannis into Elden. It was a great game. Really good. Really aggressive. As all of Adam's games were. It was a hyper aggressive game.
I think that's the right gameplay. The best painted solo. Some of the nominees for this coming up now. Duggars painted the Rhaegal, the green dragon on the left, and I will say it was my favourite model there. It was really nicely painted. The basing was, I think, fantastic. The Night's Watch Scorpion as well is almost photorealistically good. It was fantastic. Suavik's Night's Watch conscripts as well. Very brilliant. Photos across the board from the various entries. I still massive shout out to the Blackfish entry, who I don't even care that they didn't win or anything like that, but absolutely took memeing to a next level. And any community that can enter a meme painting prize is a good community. I bet did you think he worked really hard getting that black, a nice shade of black, Carlo?
I mean, there's a close-up photo. He's 100% black with a really nice base.
Yeah. It's like properly nice base, but it's not. It's not just I'm painted. No, it's I am going to meme and I'm gonna meme properly. So yeah, that Rhaegar was lovely. Drogon was great. Drogon. Look at that crossbow. It was a very good score. More shots. I'm just gonna rattle through them. I've no idea what we've got. Oh,
I mean, we actually have to stop Mickey because there are 700 photographs.
not in this one. I've got. You're on the Facebook one, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there are 700 photographs on the Facebook group. My God, do not go through all 700. Tim Whitney's.
Tim Whitney Starks.
Tim Whitney Starks.
Best
Absolutely
overall
spot
army.
on. Yes. This was the winner. Was this
Best individual model.
which tune was it?
Daniel.
Daniels, yes.
I think.
Daniel's Brienne. You don't get the full justice from this angle, but you can see the face. My God, this. I mean, we all know Brienne is a lovely model. I think if you're going to win a painting competition, entering Brienne is a good shout because the model is lovely. But this paint job is fantastic.
Face, the eyes, everything immaculate on this model. That's not an individual model though either. Face, eyes on all of his models across his entire army were beautiful.
He's professional level painter, I'd say.
Yeah, Tim's army has incredible freehand conversions, loads of like Celtic marks on it, all that kind of stuff. Actually, the face work on Daniel's Lannisters was really next level. Like actually, like the top level of detail and fine painting that I saw there.
Dave said Dan, and he said it's rubbish. Oh, come on, Dave. Give him one thing. Give him that he's good at painting. Yeah, I mean the painting entries were ridiculous. I didn't say Suavex conscripts. Did you check them out, Carlo?
Yeah.
Have there something weird about them?
That they're from other games, other models, other everything. Yeah.
Yeah, he literally.
Interestingly, I'm pretty sure Suavek a while ago posted up about his blood bases, and I didn't realize that they were them until I saw them.
And he literally taken models from other games and things like that, or you can see like Baratheon wardens and things that he's taken and put into his conscripts, being the concept of like people have come from all over the world to join the Watch. Yeah, I think it's really a nice theme idea. Yeah, spot on. I mean, the quality of painting across the board from good players, all the players, was amazing. Oh, these Outriders. I wanted to stop by these Outriders. This is Tim Whitney's Outriders, right?
Those best individual painted unit.
Those, I mean, Outriders are not a good model, right? They are.
They're dated. They're dated.
They're a dated model.
Don't forget, guys. They are initial starter box models.
Yeah.
As we know, there is not as much detail on them. They're not as fine. The horses are not as good. His paintwork just brings out everything there is about that model, though, and they look brilliant.
They're utterly brilliant. Like the shields. The shields are fantastic. Before anyone asks, and it's like, oh, but the shields use stencils and things. Didn't. Legit, just straight freehand. Man is an insane painter. Like, I want to see Tim and the Toons sit and just paint models and have a paint off, because I think they paint some amazing stuff. Also, this was Oliver John's Turnbull's best solo, right? This was the Giant, the best solo, and I really like it. I really like this.
I think the tone work, the blue flash undertone, I actually think is For me, that is the best solo. It was really standout for me. Yeah, I think they were judged by Duncan. Hey! As everybody knew, these 3 categories were judged by Duncan, and I couldn't agree more with what Duncan picked. They were absolutely spot on models, and we didn't. Interestingly, like after Duncan went away to go and pick models, I suddenly had this thought, like, oh no, I didn't really tell. Like, is Duncan going to pick the same person 3 times? Because, like, I was sort of thought to myself, surely the best painter here is the best painter here. But players could enter all categories, all things. I really do think that he picked the best thing in every category. He really did. and it was the best thing won, and it was 3 different people. The best monster was the best monster, in my opinion. The best unit was the best unit. And the best individual model was the best individual model. And they were painted by 3 different people. So I think it was really impressive. But the level across the entire thing was really, really high.
I
I
mean,
think that's Tim's. That's Tim's. Ned Stark.
Yeah,
But
Eddard's not that. Eddard is nuts. Like, to think that we saw the Brienne won, and you look at that and you go, that's really good. And then you go, like, the Brienne was better. Probably
yeah.
only marginally, but it was better. Just tells you the level of painting that some of these people are at. It is nuts. I'm trying to find it. The pictures. Ah, here we go. This bad boy. So this was Stephen Reed's entry for best individual model, and it's, in theory, it's really basic. It's just a follows a bone. What I was impressed by is just the cleanliness of it. Like, as in, if this was my rank and file bloke in my normal army, I'd be happy. Like, I'd be well more than happy. I'm a good painter level of happy. So yeah, massive kudos for that, because he's probably painting up his whole army like that.
Just to Tom, we flew past it, but as you mentioned, there was Cersei in the blue shift, like shifting gown, kind of like semi see through.
Yeah,
I would say it was the only model that didn't photograph well. I know I was actually there with Scott. He tried it at a few different angles. I'd say it's one of the few ones where the picture doesn't do it justice. It was actually really, really nice. It was actually a bit unfortunate that it kind of like couldn't come out well in the photographs. But yeah, I agree with Tom that it was a beautiful model in person.
This is just us clearly photographing Duncan for proof that he did actually look at them. He didn't just randomly pick. I don't know why Scott has got a lot of pictures of Duncan looking at models. I think Scott's got
looking at a computer. We all do what we're good at.
We all do what we're good at. But no, I will stop going through these in a minute because there are a lot, as Carlo says. But yeah, the across the board, it was fantastic, and it was brilliant to see just so many entries from so many quality players for the painting and all the armies that were there. Again, go and check out the Facebook group on NRG. They're all up in NRG, so check them out there. You'll find out all the cool shit. And there's some kudos to the community for that one, because I thought I was an okay painter, and I turned up there and was like comparing my models with some of the things that people was like, and I was like, all right, I'm awful in comparison to these people. I make them so that they look nice on a table. These guys make them look like they're bloody works of art. So, cool. The journey back, Carlo. That was
the journey back was exciting. Like I say, the most stressful part of the entire time actually was that always in the back of my mind was that we had no petrol, and that a petrol crisis was sweeping across the country and worsening day by day. And when we left the event in the evening, we'd go past petrol stations and they'd all just be closed. They're 24 hours and they'll all be closed, just saying we have no petrol. We tried 4 petrol stations at service stations on the way back before we found any. We were down to we had loads. The dashboard still said we had 70 miles. I think we had 70 miles to go. But when we finally found petrol, the next service station was 50 miles away. So it was really last chance. It was a bit stressful. Journey took a while. Journey both directions took a while. But we made it home. I believe Hilo actually didn't. I believe he got petrol but then broke down. But I think everybody made it home. Even Suavek, who it turns out didn't have a flight home yet. But I believe he is in Poland.
Yeah, he is. I've asked him earlier. He made it back
heard he
home.
is safe and sound in Poland, so good on you, Suavek. You made it home. I'm glad. I believe Blood Raven's flying home right now.
For any out of context memes there, I 100% think Suavek just turned up with a lot of money at the airport and went, someone.
Somebody get me on a plane.
Yeah, yeah, I did find the armies there. We're just going through them now. If anyone is interested, these are the armies that were up for best painted. There are better photos of these up on the Facebook group with like much closer photos rather than just the armies as a whole. But yeah, if you want to go check them out, I would recommend it. Yeah, the journey back up to give you an idea of how tense it was. We basically didn't talk to each other for the first half an hour of the car journey outside of there's a station within 5 miles. This is the directions. Then there would be just dead silence.
And then it was like, "What do you mean we've missed the exit? We haven't got enough petrol to go around the to go around the roundabout once more."
The best moment was like we're looking at the bloody temperatures like 28 degrees, and we're all just sat here in a car without air conditioning on in the hope that we'd get further. And the mist is steaming up the window. Oh god. Anyway, there you go. There's the prize support as well that we got from Seam on all the boxes. Was it 84 unit boxes and 9 starters in the end? Was that right? Close to.
Yeah, there was. So we got even more than like they'd initially told us that they were going to give us. So we were able, like, when we first got told by Simon, like, you know, we'd be able to like give you kind of like they gave rough numbers. We'd be able to give you a good amount of support, right? Very first thing we said to ourselves is that's enough that we can give everybody a box. Like everybody can go home with a box, and that was our main first thing. When it turned out that we actually had even more than that on the day, we were really pleased to be able to like just grow the bigger other prizes, every single thing, extra painting prizes, sportsmanship, best painted army, overall winner, all the faction masters. We were able to like start to like give them really large amounts. Unfortunately, you know, we didn't have enough to give everybody 2 boxes. So what we were able to do was we were just able to give a lot to a few people while making sure also that everybody left home with a box. Almost crazily, you know, it's by large majority Q3 releases, which none of us expected. We were very sure that we were hopeful that we would have been given Q2 releases. We ended up with brand new in the country Q3 releases, kind of stuff that most people in Europe don't have. It was incredibly generous support, and I'm, you know, really thankful to Simon and Asmodee for sorting out for us.
It is mental to think that for what was ended up being like a 46, 44 player event, that kind of level, we nearly had enough stock of base unit boxes to give someone 2 boxes each. Like that's the level of support there was. We unfortunately couldn't for the reasons stated, but to think that that was how close we were is just insane.
And I think that we were surprised. It's hugely generous, but there were a lot of people at this event, right? There are 500, 600, nearly 40k players in the background, players, over 1,000 people at the event in total, which I know, you know, like COVID is still a thing. There's a thing, but everybody else at the event was giving serious eyes and serious thought and kind of remorse to the fact that they weren't participating in this game and this tournament and being part of this set of amazing prizes. And I think that hopefully that's done a lot. A lot of people wanted to come over and find out what game we were running, giving away prizes for. A lot of people were interested during the games, but a lot of people were very interested in the 3 tables worth of prizes that we had to announce and give out. So, you know, like I think that it was very, very important for that from that perspective. I think it'll be very, very difficult for them to even match, never mind top it in the future. I don't expect it for us or anybody else in the future. But I really do hope that they continue to support events in that same kind of way. Because really, you know, it will help to make those events big, prestigious things, and it allowed us to give away. It allowed us to put all of our money for prize support into much more individual swords and trophies and stuff like that that people could walk away with. Not just a product, but a memento of the day, something tangible that is specific to them and what they brought to the community in the game.
100%. That photo there was most of the attendees of the event. Of course, 1 or 2 people missing, unfortunately. But that is most of the attendees of the event. Certainly for the Sunday, that's everyone who attended on Sunday in that photo there. And there's not a single person there who I don't think I had a conversation with for at least 5-10 minutes about the game or just about anything. And again, there's not a single person there I wouldn't, gladly have another conversation with today. It's absolute spot on event, spot on players, spot on guys running it. Great time was had. Games were fantastic. I know it sounds like that because obviously, like, semi-involved in organization. I know the organizers quite well, but from a player perspective, I had no reason to come away upset from that event. So yeah, huge kudos to you, and of course this man right here, Chris. Chris put a lot of effort in. So yeah, great. Should we move on,
Yeah.
Carlo?
Yeah, Carl, I am super happy for us. Honestly, for a lot of time, like, I thought it might not come to pass. I don't mince my words. A lot of times I felt like Simon have been incredibly US centric, particularly with this prize support. I didn't think that equivalency was going to make it to Europe. And it did in this case. There were some more difficult hoops to jump through because we are having to communicate with the US, and they were then having to communicate with Asmodee in the UK. It did make things a bit touch and go at the end, but they pulled on through and supplied a really, really good set of prizes.
Yeah, wicked. The next thing I wanted to mention, or the next thing we talk about, was the
Tournament 2.
Topic 2.
And Tournament 2 or topic 3. We did pictures, but yeah, topic 2, as people mention, 15 minutes under 2 hours. Cool. It's gonna be a long one.
We're going to bash through these other buns probably quite quickly, I imagine.
Buckle in.
But Peter's a small ELO event. It was only 4-player ELO event that he ran. But you can see there the 3 rounds that they played, and he said he absolutely loved. And there was some feedback and things he obviously offered, but it was really good to see that somebody actively just said, that wasn't related to us whatsoever, by the way. Aside from Peter watching the stuff here, which he does, which is great. We don't know Peter that well. We've had conversations with him, but that's it. He went out there and posted on the main Facebook group saying, like, this was amazing. He even said he won't play in another tournament unless it was an ELO one again. So yeah, huge shout out and thanks to Peter for that. So yeah.
And I've spoken to him. I have taken, I read all of his feedback and pretty much all of his points. I was like, yep, probably should do that. I will. I am. It's very difficult to, partly because of the way the challenge mechanic works, the way the game input works, the way it sort of like allows players to input, but also allows the TO to input, and all these kind of moving parts going on. And that I tried to help players not have to know the game, and specifically, I tried to set the system up in a way that a TO doesn't have to know every single thing about A Song of Ice and Fire. Also, a TO doesn't have to know every single thing about, like, the tournament doc to be able to run a successful tournament, right? For a start, TOs don't actually have to know what a legal list is because the site will already only allow you to make legal lists. They don't have to go through and check them. They don't even have to properly understand the 2-list format and all that kind of stuff. So I tried to make the tournaments run the way Simon say tournaments are supposed to be run, without you as a TO having to know all these things. The flip side of that is that if people are trying to change the tournament doc, change the way tournaments are run them in non-Swiss pairing, allow what the thing that I had not appreciated and had not expected is so many TOs want to run events where players change their lists every round. This is not something that I had expected, and it's very incompatible with the way the site runs. But I will be looking to build a whole new thing that you can run, call it a league or something else like that, because these are normally leagues that run over a long period of time, not actually tournaments run on a day. I will be trying to create a new format that people can use, which has more flexibility that allows people to run these style events. It's actually very, very difficult for you to run Cerberus or weekly events where you change your lists. But I just need to state, like, I don't know how many people would have made it this far and are thinking about this kind of stuff. But like as a generic public service announcement, I know like people like to name their events and run these things, but effectively that's what challenges are for. Challenges allow you to run all of that stuff. All a tournament does for you is creates challenges for your players and keeps them all in one place. And specifically what it does is it forces people to use the same list every game. Because that's what a tournament actually is in the CMON tournament doc. The CMON tournament doc says you're going to play this many games and you're going to use the same two lists. If you want to run something where lists are constantly changing, then at least for now, at least in the short term, I really just recommend that you just run run it as challenges. But I'm glad that Peter particularly is in chat now. But other people, Sunday Slaughter tournament's still going on. We absolutely will not have time to go over it today because it will still be on next week, and we'll catch up with it next week. But believe everybody is enjoying that. You know, like I think even after the initial shock of somebody scoring 4 point something points in the first round, it's already starting to level itself out, and people are starting to understand the system better from that perspective. ELO is getting the kind of call it attention, traction, recognition amongst the community that I always hoped that it would. I hope that it can help you enjoy the game more. That's what it's there for. It's there to help you have reasons to want to play the game in a different way, to keep you interested, to keep you excited, rather than to have you looking ahead constantly to when are they going to fix the balance.
Yeah.
It's supposed to keep your focus on the now, the focus on yes, maybe the focus on what the current rankings are, but not in a negative way. We're looking at them in a way that we're interested in them and we're interested in seeing new matchups, interested in seeing new stuff. And ELO has been pretty successful with that so far.
I think 9 months of saying this, but I'll say it again. What we want is we want people to keep playing this game. We want people to play as many games as they can. Whatever keeps people playing this game and allows people to feel like they enjoy the game more and to understand the game more, that's what we want. So do it. Play the game. Great. It's a great game. You know, much as the hate we give it sometimes, it is a fucking good game. So, the next one we touch on to is the Choc de Région, the final of the Spanish long event. We covered this a year ago when the Clash of Regions started up.
Yeah,
and the kind of
it's
stuff
been a
they were
long
doing.
road. It's been a long road. It's been a hard road for them, I think. You know, COVID came back when people were optimistic that it wasn't going to.
Yeah.
This was initially supposed to be like a 4-month process. It's been a year now. It's been a year since it started, and I give huge kudos both to the size and the imagination and the optimism with which they ran the event and how they were able to get such a humongous event run, you know, in total a humongous event across Spain, because don't forget these are qualifiers from I believe 10 to 12 different small regional events.
Yep.
But those 10 to 12 regional events, they've got 8 to 10 players each. We are talking effectively a 100-person tournament here. It just spanned an edition change, it spanned a balance patch, it spanned cards coming out, spanned whole new releases, it spanned the release of a new faction.
Yeah.
Can you believe?
Yeah.
So like, I'm really pleased that they managed to finish it off. You know, like it did go quiet for a while, but obviously they were having a lot of difficulties getting the final and coming together. Um, we'll talk a bit about the event in a minute, but like just amazingly well done. Like that it happened. So many sponsors involved, so many people involved, such a big celebration of their community across the whole country. So huge well done to them for that.
Definitely, 100%. We this is another point that we like to make. This is like, obviously we are going to be UK centric. We've talked about the GT, but actually, in the end of the day, Song of Ice and Fire is played everywhere, or a lot of places, and we want to hear about places like Spain. We've talked about Poland before and about the fantastic the scene you have in Poland. Actually having be able to have Polish players at our events was brilliant, and the fact that they use the site so well, and the Spanish as well, the Italians, the scene that's growing there, which is great to see. When we see it on stats, when we know that this is the place to go to find out about tournaments and what's going on with a Song of Ice and Fire, we think there's a great community. We know there are other communities out there, but because they're not using the site for whatever reason, we don't know about them. Can't access the information. It's just not as easy to see what is going on. You have to be someone who's in the know. And so, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. Spread the use of stats as much as you can, because we want to see more communities come up around here. And you never know, you might have that moment that we had in the GT where two random guys meet each other, find out that they live really close, and all of a sudden start gaming with each other. Which is what we want. We want to build community across the board in any country, anywhere. So, a free folk winner, Carlo.
Yeah, it's interesting. So going back to the whole like idea of politics, like the political use of tournaments,
Yeah.
like it's so interesting that like to people who want to just say this or that, I don't believe anybody's both talked about the Free Folk winner and the Night's Watch winner in the same way. Like we don't. That's the thing. When something goes against what we expect, people are like, someone will be like, "Look, the game's balanced." And then like when it goes as stats would expect it, people are like, look, the game's totally broken. It's really odd. I mean, for a start, absolute kudos to a player for beating the odds, I would call it. Like they've done incredibly well. It's a pretty crazy game as far as I know, the final. He wins it 10-9.
Yep.
Having had 32 of his own points destroyed. That is, he would be wiped out were it not for endless hordes keeping him on the board.
So, beat this, right? I've spoken to Mikel, who was there at the event. He's often watched a lot of our stuff. I believe there go Mikel Navarro. He came down in 15th. I was speaking to him. He saw the game. He didn't see all of it, but he saw the end. And the last unit that the Free Folk had on the board was a unit of Raiders and 4 health. So I calculated it earlier. The Night's Watch, over the course of that game, I don't know what round it was, but over the course of that game, the Night's Watch player did 104 wounds. And that's without counting any bags or Craster heals, which Craster was in one of his lists. So the minimum number of wounds that was done was 104.
What's his list? Yeah, his list is 7 Raiders.
Raiders with Mance, Raiders with an attachment, 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 Raiders with Jarl, Value Grit Craster.
I think it's super interesting though, right? I made a big point, and rightly or wrongly, I didn't actually participate in the event, but I feel like what I felt coming away from the event was in the LGT, Night's Watch took first and second, and I don't think anybody went away with it angry about that or unhappy about that. But I have actually seen a decent amount of, like just unrest, unhappiness, comments from people at the Spanish event about Night's Watch and awful being, that known negative play experience, that known difficult thing for the game. And yet, interestingly, Night's Watch don't win that event. This is what I'm sort of talking about. Like, we need to look beyond the win. Like, you have to look beyond the winner of the event. People aren't enjoying playing it, and that's what's important. But again, I do think that it's a huge mentality thing. Yeah. It seems like Night's Watch were an overwhelmingly large number of the entrants. And maybe a lot of people believe that Night's Watch are the thing standing in the way of them enjoying the event if they have to play them a lot. We see a lot of Night's Watch in the top half here.
It's
But,
8
I mean,
to
we're talking
32. It's 25% of the entries.
25% of the entrants, and we're what? We're talking like second, third, and
Second,
then
third,
also filling up
7th, 8th,
most of the
9th,
rest of
10th.
the top half.
The 6 of the top 10 are Night's Watch.
Yeah. But it's also worth discussing, right? For me, the issue with the game, less so than how you feel about it. For me, it's that this Free Folk player has won by playing a very good strategy, but the unfortunate part of Night's Watch right now, and I know this from playing and winning with Lannisters too, is your absolute best strategy when playing against Night's Watch right now and the very shooty heavy awful lists which have a lot of conscripts is you play entirely the game mode and nothing else. You play only the game mode and to survive. And I do not ever, ever intend to kill one of your units. I am not at all surprised that the Free Folk player wins despite having destroyed 0 points. That is also how I've beaten Night's Watch in the past. I've played Lannister Faith heavy armies, which are basically healing based and hardened based rather than like insignificant sacrifice based. But the point is identical, which is I'm here to score victory points and it's pointless in me attacking you. And that's unenjoyable interactive gameplay. That's for me the issue as much as the rate at which Night's Watch are winning.
I will go as far as saying if anyone watches the final game that recorded, it was a wipe. Suvek completely just smashed me off the board, basically. But if anyone watches the game, you'll see. If anyone spots this, I'll be impressed. But there's a very interesting thing about the way that I played and a complete lack of something. And I'll give you the answer now. But honestly, watch it. I never made a single attack.
I actually
Never made a single attack roll.
Didn't watch the game, so I will be interested to look back over it myself.
I legitimately never made a single attack.
Peter's right. Peter says it's fine coming to an event and wanting to have a fair chance to win. I do understand that mentality because I currently, outside of ELO, don't feel able to take Baratheons to a tournament because I just don't think that I have any chance of winning. I don't think I'm that good of a player. I don't think that I can win an event, and I would like there to be a chance. I don't expect to win. I wouldn't be upset if I don't win, but I won't enter an event with a faction or a list that I don't think has a chance to win. And if Night's Watch are making you feel like that, then I do understand that mentality, but or that issue with them. But it's really, really complex at the moment. It's a really hard discussion because it is about the way you approach the game. And I think we just have to accept where they're at because, like I say, it's not going to fix itself. And I don't think bans help either. Bans just create new imbalances. Myself, personally, I think that. But, like, you have to accept it for what it is and expect that will happen to you at a tournament and come to terms with it. You have to be okay. You have to be okay with it. But I do feel for them. I know that they've put a huge, huge amount of work into this. They've been working on it for literally a year. Started running it a whole edition ago. And I know that there were some comments about the fact that they don't think that this is sustainable for their community. I know Peter responded with, please try ELO. And I would say the same. Please try an ELO event. It might help revive your interest. But there was a free folk winner. Like there was, proving that it is possible. It doesn't. The thing is it's not a strategy most people want to choose to play. People don't want to enter into a game with the intent of never making an attack. And they don't want that to be their best route to victory. And I think that that's absolutely fair enough. Like nobody should want their best route to victory to be, I never attack, I just die, and don't die fast enough for you to beat me.
To think that he only had 4 wounds at the left of the game though. That eight whole units of raiders died for a total of 96 wounds, not including any healing. And then there was only 4 models left in the last unit. 104 wounds, healing in co-op. Man. I mean, I agree with what Hilo said as well.
I actually not really sure why you're surprised by that.
Well, no. As in, I'm
like because Night's Watch are tabling everybody,
I know.
And Raiders pay an equivalency for what they're like. It doesn't matter that they have 100 wounds because that's the same as every other army who takes 50 wounds, because every other army has a 3-up save and better morale, and they're not got disorderly. So like that's how everybody feels. It doesn't matter whether you had 50 wounds and lost 50 wounds, or you had 100 wounds and you lost 100 wounds. People have paid X amount for their defense, their wounds, their health, their everything, and Raiders are getting it significantly cheap, and they're dying in droves. Wardens, Guardsmen, Warrior Sons, they're paying a premium for those things, and they're still dying in droves. It's pretty agnostic to what you play, that you're at risk of being tabled by Night's Watch.
Yeah. No, I do think it's, Tom said it though, I do think it's ridiculous that you can force a player to lose 104 wounds and that player still wins, or more. That's also kind of ridiculous, because that has its own problems as well. Won't go into that. That is problematic. I do refer to that 7 raider list. Anyone who watches the Hard Home Discord, I do refer to that 7 raider list as something that I did talk about a couple of months back as being potentially just game cancer, in that I don't think you can ever kill anything. I don't think you'll ever be able to push through. You might kill the odd unit here and there, but it's just game cancer in the same way that Insignificant Spam was back in 1.6. But at least Insignificant Spam 1.6 had to play the game and actually had to try and kill units and pick things off. Otherwise, it would lose. Whereas I think you might be able to not now. But it's not a game.
Interesting that Strudels, in response to this discussion, says Cerberus forever. But honestly, I do not understand the Cerberus format, and if this is a personal thing, I do not understand the Cerberus format and why people think that the Cerberus format fixes the game. I would be especially nervous of the Cerberus format once Night's Watch Heroes 2 is out, because I think that there are at least 3 downright oppressive Night's Watch commanders in the game at that point. Actually, I think that the Cerberus format makes Night's Watch even more oppressive because they have 3 commanders who are standout good at that point, and I don't think any other faction has 3 commanders that are as standout good. And I think that they have strength across their lists, which just can't be matched. But, I wish the Spanish community all the best in taking this amazing event forward and continuing to grow, rather than it being like
a death knell.
We took this game to its limit and we hated it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. Cool. We'll move on. We will end the event. We'll end today very shortly. But the Cerberus event that was won, Datalink was here earlier, and Datalink won this event in the end, running Night's Watch. But Joseph running Greyjoys, and I think he's running released Greyjoys with Victarion and Asher. He's got Reavers, Bowmen, and Ironmakers. He has got Ice. He's got Heroes 1. He's got Eric. But yeah, I mean, the guy ran his main list. He's running Greyjoys to a second place, 3 wins. Very respectable from Joseph Urban there, I think. Greyjoys are not a particularly competitive faction, as we know, and be able to go 3 wins is still respectable. Beating a Baratheon, a Targaryen, Lomas Longstrider, and another Baratheon on the way up. So, kudos. Absolute kudos to Joseph, and of course Charles as well. What you need to do, Charles, is play against Joseph now to see who was the undisputed winner. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. And I really hope you lose to 2 Greyjoys. Do it. First Greyjoy tournament winner.
Congratulations. You know, like that whole what's so complicated about all these discussions is like
It's
player
the faction, not
skill.
the player.
Player skill is still so important. Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
I don't have
100%.
any problems with a player son who chooses to run Night's Watch. And if you win an event, you have still won an event. It's still so important that you put the lists together, understand the lists, understand the game modes, all these things. A player wins because of the back of their skill. You just want that to come without any arguments over whether or not it was fair. But absolutely well done on winning the Cerberus format, a format that I personally don't understand that well. I would have to put in huge amount of thought and work around what commanders lists and stuff I would put together. So I think that it is interesting. It's interesting format to keep the game alive. I technically hate it because technically it's almost impossible to run through the site. And I think that there are other ways to keep the game interesting that are compatible with the site. But you know, like that's for people to choose themselves. There is one more tournament, Mickey. I'm so surprised that you haven't brought it up at all.
Which tournament?
It had Hall of Champions. Take a look. It has a relatively it has a faction badge which we have never, ever, even in 1.6, seen in there. Lordic won a legit 8-player event with legit neutral armies. I mean, congratulations.
I mean, those
genuinely,
those are exactly the same. No, they're not exactly the same.
They're not identical. He's
Tycho
actually he's running a NCU difference.
That's it. Yeah.
I think, you know, honestly, I'm semi not surprised, which is this is the 3rd local tournament that Lordic has won. He's clearly a very, very good player. I'm really, really pleased that he's therefore taking on the challenge. This is, you know, the first time he's come and done it with neutrals. I'm really pleased that he's taking on a new challenge, taking on a new faction. He might be 3 for 3 with different factions. I haven't looked closely enough. But he has gone out there and won a tournament which has a Night's Watch Othel player in with Vargo the Hope, the absolute GOAT himself. So huge congratulations to Oleg Lordic, showing why he's currently sat in the top 8.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't believe that Mickey doesn't care. He's a neutral winner. Like, I know people have like said that neutrals have won in the past, right? Like, but I mean, like, really, like, if it's not on stats, then I genuinely pretty much don't believe it. The thing is that, like, I don't know how many tournaments are run that aren't on stats. It could be 90% of all tournaments aren't on stats, or it could be 50% of all tournaments, or 10%. If 90% of all tournaments aren't on stats, of course, somebody somewhere has won with neutrals once. But when they're on stats, I can compare how likely it is to actually it happening. And it has happened for the very first time ever.
It has.
We're talking, I think that there's been, in total, across the 2 editions since the Hall of Champions came out, I think we're talking 50 events have been run, and they've never, ever been won by neutrals before.
It was always going to happen. And
eventually,
specifically with Oleg's run, and this is not to take away from Oleg, he played a Greyjoy, only just beat him. He then played into a Stark, and then played into a Baratheon who resigned. So, like, I don't know what happened. Fire and Blood with neutrals, I'm guessing he might have just gone charging in and got some kills. I'm not taking it away from Oleg, but I look at that and say he played a 3-round event, and played, it looks like, 2 very easy games for 2 and 3. But round 1 was his hardest game against a Greyjoy. Again, not taking away from Oleg. I want to see him do that. I feel
like you are. As soon as you make that statement, as soon as you make the statement, I'm not taking away. But I'm not taking away.
I want to see him do the same thing in a slightly larger event. That's all.
The bar is just being like moved. All right. Well, okay, there you go. The bar has been met, and now the bar has been moved.
It has to be
Somebody's
met.
won a tournament. Somebody's
Someone
won a
was always going to
tournament.
meet it.
Someone's
And
won a tournament with neutrals. That's it, Oleg. Now you have to win a bigger event with neutrals.
well, the point I'm trying to make, right?
Or J Bill or Beast King Marek, anyone out there, you got to win a massive event with neutrals to get Mickey's respect. It turns out.
No, so the reason I say that
You got my respect already, and just for Oleg, neutrals are a faction.
for what it's worth, though, I mean, neutrals have now just dropped below Baratheons in the rankings, just over the last day, right? But I just want to point out that Baratheons have won events, and they were sat lower down in the power rankings for a long period of time. Now, you could argue that's because of lack of
Baratheons have
neutral
only
data.
won an ELO event in 2021.
Yeah,
They've
so
never won a
yeah.
non-ELO event.
Yeah. No, I'm
right. So,
yeah.
No,
yeah. But
that is the lowest rated faction in the game winning an event.
It is. It is now.
And it wasn't ELO, and it was totally open format, and Night's Watch were there. And as far as I know, and I think I had even a look at the Night's Watch list. I think it has crossbowmen with a crossbowman with a captain in. So there's no bans of like watch captain is shooting only or something like that. It's Tom Tyler, winter is coming. I hear now you got to win the LGT with neutrals, otherwise you're nothing. You're nothing. It doesn't matter. You're nobody.
It's not that. It's just it's exactly what I was trying to say. Someone was eventually going to do it, and I'm really glad that Oleg did. Like, I can't take it away from Lordic, but like we said before, Lordic wins a lot of tournaments in that area. Lordic, like him go, it's like Furioku turning up to his local event and winning another local event. I'm not taking it away from Lordic here, but Lordic winning isn't a surprise, in that I believe he could probably do it with any faction. That's my point.
You say it was eventually going to happen, but actually I say it's not necessarily eventually going to happen. I think that it takes a certain person to do it, because most people aren't going out there, Mickey, and challenging themselves to play low-rated stuff.
I agree.
Most players like Lordic, who've won the last 2 tournaments, aren't willing to take the risk of taking a low-rated thing like neutrals. They're not willing to not win because they feel like they now have to maintain their own reputation as winning the tournaments.
I agree to that to some extent. I do agree with that to some extent. But I think, some people will. And I think actually, to some extent, Carlo, this is where I like it, community and all that. I think if you look at the players up here, they're players who are willing to do that, predominantly.
I mean, okay.
That's the thing, because I mean, Lordic, as we know, Masara's played with lots of different factions. Typically takes Night's Watch, but has played other factions. Larks has.
Okay, but here's what's interesting. Here's what I find. Here's what I they are high rated because they play those factions.
Yeah.
What's most of them aren't willing to do it in tournaments. That's the difference. That is the difference. Most of them are willing to play it in an ELO event or in any casual game on TTS, or like whatever competitive level game it is on TTS. They're willing to play them because they understand that it's good for their rating, but they're not willing to take the step of losing a tournament by fielding a mid-range faction.
Mm-hmm. That's true. No, I agree there. It's their choice not to take. They should have been taking them worse factions earlier on. And in regards to your question there, if it was inevitable, one of the previous dedicated neutral pros would already have done it. The problem is on StatSite there aren't that many. There are simply not that many neutral players. We've already talked about this to some extent. And the other thing is the dedicated players, although they are dedicated to neutrals and they might take them at every event, the difference is in their areas that they play. Like Tom Tyler's a good example. Tom Tyler's never won an event. So we might compare him and say he's a good player, but he's never won an event with the players he plays against. So for him to take neutrals and like reduce himself down in quality, if you will, by taking a worse faction, he's less likely to win it again because he's clearly not better than everyone else there. My point is Lordic has won with everything, and basically he's going down the list. I won with the good stuff, now I won with the medium stuff, now I'm winning with the crap stuff. what that tells me is it tells me Lordic is a very, very good player, and more importantly, very much better than everyone there, which is either means he's phenomenal and everyone else is good, or he's just way better than them in the local area. I don't know which one's right. I'd love to think that Lordic is just a fantastically good player. I can believe that he is. I've seen him play online elsewhere. But we'll wait and see, I guess. I'd love to see, again, outside of the Russian bubble. He's playing in the Sunday Slaughter event, I believe. Right?
Maybe. Yeah, I recognize the name.
Yep. Playing, and I know Lordic, I haven't spoken to him, but I know he is good, and I do believe that he is good. So he's running Greyjoys at the moment, and I think he's gone 1 win, 1 loss. Yeah. Cool. So maybe Greyjoys is harder than neutrals. I don't know. I love to see it. I want to see it. I want to see him win more. That's all it is. I want to see him win more. Go to Poland.
I know.
Beat the Polish players in neutrals.
Charles and Chris Eustace understand. They understand. Like, I mean, since Mickey's just trashed them all. Mickey did great at the weekend. Mickey's not got a cup against his name.
No, I don't.
Never
I
won
haven't
any tournament,
I've
Mickey.
never won a tournament.
So
Correct.
how about we give Oleg his props for winning one with neutrals? Nobody has ever done that before. I've never had the balls to do it.
Yep.
Nobody has ever been in the Hall of Heroes with neutrals before. So I am absolutely amazed for Oleg and only Oleg. Neutrals are a faction. They are viable. They are winners. They are Hall of Champions. And you are my champion of the week. Slavek, absolutely love you, mate. Great play. But Oleg is my champion of the week. He is...
Fair enough.
He is doing everything I love. You know, a man of my own heart, playing multiple factions and challenging himself.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, though. He does challenge himself. So that's the thing for Lordic, is you've got to give props for him. Not for winning. Ironically, I don't give him props for winning with neutrals, although that is worthy of it. I give him props because he plays other factions. That's actually, for me, what's more important, is that he won with something and he didn't just go, I'm going to do it again. He made it harder for himself by taking something different. That's what's important. Different side of the narrative. Same thing, different way of looking at it, I think. So, Tharmian also won the Terrible Tournament, which was a 5-player event with only 1 round, I believe.
I don't think it properly ran. I need to contact them. Maybe they didn't like the site. I don't know. They submitted 1 result and then closed the tournament, which seemed an odd thing to do. They didn't even submit 1 full round. They submitted 1 result and then closed the event. So whoever won the first 1 game that they submitted was the winner of the event. Yeah. But outside of that event there, the Terrible Tournament, which I don't know if they renamed Terrible because they didn't like the site or if it was always called the Terrible Tournament. There were 5 events that we've just talked about, 2 of which were huge.
Yep.
But 5 events run on the site in 1 weekend. There were huge ELO movements. Night's Watch really re-established themselves way ahead of the pack. They had been drifting down for a long time because of the effect of bans and other such things. Effectively, people not using them to their full effect. Lots of people at the LGT, lots of people at the Spanish event using them to their full effect. And that really strengthens the faction rankings in terms of, like, they are more realistic in my mind, with Night's Watch way ahead. I think that's a better reality, better reflection of reality. Bans hide the issues of the game without actually solving them. But Othel is on the kind of numbers that I thought he would be at quite a while ago. But like I say, we started to come to the appreciation that nobody wanted to play against him. So very, very quickly. But a great weekend for the site. 5 events. I hope that there are 5 events every weekend. It's not actually going to happen, but I want everybody's site tournaments to be on there. I don't know if the site is getting more popular or if people are just playing more tournaments now. If the game is getting both COVID kind of allowances and also the game just coming out of COVID and that whole thing, and the whole community is getting bigger and more active, maybe like not necessarily bigger, but more active. The site is more active than it's been for a long time. So yeah, they're all brilliant, brilliant things in my mind. I just want the site to be active. I'm not trying to steal your email or sell you something, or I don't even have a point to prove. I actually don't care if you believe neutrals are the best or not. I actually gave up on that idea a long time ago. I'm not trying to create fake narrative or data or influence Simon or anything. I just want people to use it and enjoy it and help improve their game with it. So please do. And I think that's been a very good weekend for that.
100%. Right then, Carlo. We'll leave it here for this week, I think. I'm sure we'll come back to things. We'll talk properly about some other stuff that's been going on. We'll catch by a couple of the other events that are probably going to be rounding off and things like that. And we're going to go away this week and we're going to play on Friday, right? With some new players who've one new player's not played in our group before and a couple of others. So hopefully we're growing our group as well. So community really has been the theme, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, been focused on the LGT for a long time. Gonna focus a bit more locally now. Got the opportunity to introduce the game to some new people. I'll continue to be looking at events, looking future, a bit further ahead. There is the Always Winter, A Song of Ice and Fire GT in Sterling. That'll be in January. 1 week later is LVO, which is now on A Song of Ice and Fire stats. As requested by some of the entrants, including myself. If anybody doesn't know, I will be going to LVO. I know that LVO is 1 week after the A Song of Ice and Fire GT because I'll be flying from Scotland to Las Vegas. So if you are on the fence about LVO, then sign up and you'll get to meet the bad man of A Song of Ice and Fire in the flesh. That's me, by the way. Mickey won't come, obviously.
I might look it up. I might look to see if I can. Why not?
Wow. Okay.
Look to see if I can.
Mickey going to the LVO. I'll tell you this right now. Mickey going to the LVO is as likely as Brett following through with the claim that he's going to play Baratheons at the LVO.
Did you say free folk? Not Baratheons? I can't remember. Anyway.
Both are about as likely as you turning up, which is fucking not going to happen. Prove me wrong. But either of you, Brett or Mickey, prove me wrong. Look at his face. He knows he's not going to prove me wrong. Chris, I can't wait to meet you, mate. It'll be great. Charles, you'll be there. I hear Ariakas will. So, it'll just be Mickey missing out.
All right, guys. We'll leave it there. I've got some flights to book. See you guys next week. Have a great one.
See you soon.
Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?